In just 24 months, your salary, savings, and trades could all sit on a public ledger. Without the right privacy, your competitors can read your playbook. Today, we're talking about the stacks that regulators accept and the numbers that force this shift. Stablecoin payments are going to reach 20 to 30 billion a day. They are traceable, but you should not be exposed. Today we have our distinguished guest, Mansi, that you have seen in a few episodes. Mansi, why did privacy recently flip from optional to basically mandatory, and what makes privacy urgent right now?
I could say there are three converging forces right now. There's enterprise rollout, tokenized funds, FX, and treasuries are moving from pilots into production, and institutions will not expose amounts of business logic in public. The second one being regulatory hardening. Regulatory frameworks now expect traceability to obliged entities and not necessarily public doxing of balances. And the third one, and the most important, arguably, being competitive integrity. Public balances and inferable inventory kill pricing power for market makers, funds, treasuries, and other institutional traders. Privacy preserves that edge while keeping compliance provable.
You have mentioned obliged entities, and could you specify like who needs compliant privacy, and I guess how big is the market of those people? Who are the buyers of the slice that truly require privacy?
You could say that there are four segments that both need it and have real budgets for it. First ones being banks and asset managers. They can't have their order flow, allocations, or P&L sitting in public, but they do need to be able to disclose everything cleanly to auditors and regulators when asked. Second one being market makers and funds. If their balances or amounts are visible, competitors can map their inventory and trade against them. Masked amounts are basically non-negotiable for them. Similarly, corporate treasuries, they need confidentiality around payables, hedging strategies, and intercompany settlements. None of that can live on a public ledger. And lastly, fintechs and payment networks. Think card or payout rails by users and businesses want privacy, but regulators still need controlled access through things like view keys or portals. Those four, I would say, could make up the core addressable market.
Okay, so let's try to put some numbers, I guess, on that addressable market. So today's stablecoin payments and settlements are around 20, 30 billion a day of like real payment flow. If we assume, I know, 20, 40, or 60% of that must be confidential by design, those bands become 4 billion a day, 8 to 12 billion a day, or 12 to 18 billion per day. Or per year, that's would be like from 1.5 trillion in the lower edge, like 20% private, 2.9 to 4 trillion, or even up to 4 to 6 trillion per year. And so that will not scale without selective disclosure for those big clients to actually use it. So if we think about like tokenization runway by 2030, that's from 4 to 16 trillion across private liquid assets. If you think of from 70 to 90% privacy required, like allocations, order books, investor data, all of that, that's about up to 3 trillion to 14 trillion that simply just won't come on chain unless there is privacy by design. So what can be that compliance grade privacy? How exactly, what can you hide and what do you have to show?
What compliance gate privacy could look like. First, on chain masked balances. Exact amounts revealed only via a time boxed view key in an audit portal. Supposedly, public addresses remain visible. The auditor sees the truth with a signed revocable key and a full access log. So, selective and provable disclosure.
Is there already like a regulated, I guess, checklist for what exactly do you require to see and to expose like in practice?
Uh, I could say that there are four non-negotiables. The first one is travel rule. In the EU and globally, you have to collect and transmit originator and beneficiary data between obliged entities, screen counterparties, and fix any missing information. Second, MiCA in the EU. CASPs now need full authorizations and firms already operating are in a transitional window. Any privacy solution has to fit inside that regulatory perimeter. Third, the EU Data Act. If smart contracts are used for data sharing, they need strong access controls and a safe interrupt or termination function with auditable governance. And the last one being the UK's direction from Bank of England and FCA. Proposed caps on retail stablecoins and the split between prudential and conduct oversight mean systems have to be designed with supervisory visibility built in.
So, well, it sounds like a lot, and a lot of that privacy is obviously a lot of like protocol overhead on people who design both the backend and like the product for it. So it could be pretty complex to address. How do you keep all of that cryptography like compliant and private so only the selected parties could see it? So you still pass audit, but still keep the like user experience like fast and smooth and for crypto to offer a lot better than the traditional finance have done so far. So yeah, we need to pick a stack from that can balance privacy, speed, and compliance. What are the state of like the art and the design in the space that can fill both privacy, speed, and compliance?
There could be three patterns often combined. The first one being TEE backed confidential execution, run matchings and the logic privately, and post attested state difference on settlement. ZK plus viewing keys, strong on chain amount privacy, scoped reads for auditors and regulators. And a hybrid version of that could be ZK for the amounts, TE for low latency and richer logic. Across all, view key governance, scope, expiry, revocation like API keys, access logging, travel rule messaging, and jurisdiction specific retention windows.
Well, that sounds like a lot like what we already do. So I could compare that architecture for listeners to like what we designed at EternaX. So we are introducing also privacy by design at the protocol level, not just the patch for like the apps. So one of them would be like executional privacy. That's first part. It's order flow and business logic would run inside the attested T lanes was like blind badge fare ordering. So the chain would post only state differences and attestations. So the strategies stay private and outcomes are verifiable. Second part to that is balance privacy. So you can see the address, but you cannot see the balance. Balances would be hidden. They would can select disclosure and scope limited time boxed view keys under governed policy, whether like it's one owner or a team, depending on the client. And every read writes a log so you can see who has accessed the balance and when. To keep it still like fast, we are introducing spendable deterministic finality below 200 milliseconds. So that's for agents to get immediate spendability and be able to work on their funds and reinvest them and continue transacting without settlement drag, still keeping privacy. All of that allows us to keep regulatory integration at the edge with the travel rule gateway, with warrantor gated regulator portals, with the view keys for the parties that are obliged to provide selective disclosure. There is retention windows for those keys, so they are rotated for security. You have save interrupt controls for any contract that shares the data. All of that is taken care of. And we also have like agentic wallets. So you have like clients that are obviously people or organizations. You have also agents that are users of our chain. They can keep using the same lanes for private order flow to minimize the leakage of their knowledge and exposure to MEV while still preserving auditability, same as enterprise clients. So if you have protocol native privacy, you have obviously fewer leakage points and consistent performance because everything is designed to work together. So it's latency and confidentiality balanced. So you have T lanes that provide fair ordering, and you have sub-second UX for automated entities that are agents. If you compare that to like ZK only systems, they would struggle for reach logic at this speed. So EternaX wants to be regulator ready for day one. That's why we're keeping eye on all of these updates. And so we're introducing view keys, logs, portals, travel rule, all of that is built in. So let's proceed of like what has actually changed, I guess, since we last talked legal on this podcast, like this quarter.
Private smart contracts arrived. Confidential compute keeps code and inputs private while producing verifiable outputs and talking to banks and Web2. The digital euro approach is new. Privacy features are paired with real time fraud and risk analytics, selective visibility by design. Another one being privacy coin de risking in Europe. Opaque assets have lost their distribution, and selective disclosure designs have actually won out. Developer liability has had some clarity. Courts have distinguished between publishing code from operating a service, and controls reduce exposure. UK retail caps there have been some debates about that. Pushes issuers towards tiered KYC and supervisory read access designed for jurisdictional failover.
Well, from all of that, it sounds like winners should provide selective and provable privacy, not just blanket opacity on everything. Let's try to turn it to our listeners into like actual checklist of what are the features that should be shipped to be compliant.
Your privacy first compliance stack could look like: first, execution privacy, TEE or equivalent with the attestations, public state differences, balance privacy, masked balances, scope limited, time box view keys, immutable access logs, travel rule interoperability, spec compliant messaging, automated remediation sanctions, and PEP screening. Data sharing contracts, safe interrupt plus access controlled, aligned to the Data Act spirit. Regulator portals, warrant gated read only access with full audit trails, jurisdiction toggles, policy flags, EU, UK, Singapore, US, retention windows, escalation flows, and a one pager privacy dossier: what's masked, who can see what, key governance, and travel rule evidence.
I guess to add to all of that, we've also heard a lot in the industry, both Web 2 and Web 3, that privacy is actually bad because privacy can let, criminals do whatever they want. We want everything to be transparent so we know who's doing what. So these are the objections that I have heard to privacy. What maybe are the objections that you have heard to privacy, and like what are, I guess, your opinion on those?
Uh, so first one is that privacy is the same as anonymity. It's not. This is selective visibility with verifiable audits. Second common one being that AML will break. That is not true. Travel rule data flows between obliged entities. On-chain amounts can remain masked. The third one being ZK and TEE are too heavy. There is a hybrid version that companies can look at, like ZK for amounts, TE for latency or logic, proofs, attestations only where they matter.
Well, like, to recap all of this that we've talked to our listeners, it's a few points that are very important. One of them is that privacy is not equal to secrecy. It is competitive integrity plus auditable compliance with selective disclosure. Second, law wants traceability. It does not exactly require public exposure of everything. The stacks that exist today to achieve that are TE, ZK, and hybrid with view key governance. Multi-trillion flows of stable coins that are coming on chain this year, next year, they require compliant privacy now and will through the next following years. And at EternaX, we are trying to build that protocol native, TE first. Your balance is masked, but selective disclosure for regulators is available, built for agents and enterprises and institutions. Thank you everyone for tuning in to the Control Loop, and please subscribe and see you in the following episodes. Thank you, Mansi, for being our guest again today, and hope to see you soon.